morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I'm calling the meeting of February 25th, 2009 to order. Today we have 2 consent calendar items and 6 projects. However, 3 of those projects won't be heard today. Item D, which is 2141 Mission Ridge Road, a public notice went out for that item. However, it was determined that the square footage noticed on that notice was inaccurate, so we are rescheduling it to March 11th. And then item F, which is 436 Coronado Del Mar. That's an application for a coastal development permit and a modification that has also been rescheduled to March 11th for renoticing. And an item that was included in today's packet is 618 San Pascal Street, and that's an application for several modifications and tentative subdivision map. And after the project was on the agenda and staff report prepared, it became evident an additional modification was necessary, so I'm going to continue that item too. But first I wanted to know, is there anybody here who wanted to speak on that item? No? Okay, so then I'll continue it to March 11th. Is there any other changes to the agenda? No? Is there any announcements or appeals? No? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the show on items not on our agenda? No? Okay. The consent calendar items have to do with time extensions for projects at 822 East Cannon Perdido Street and 824 East Cannon Perdido Street. I've read the staff report. Does staff have anything to add? No? Is the applicant here? No? Okay, well, I agree with staff's recommendation and find that the project continues to conform with the city's zoning and building ordinance and grant the 3-year time extension. Okay, we'll move on to the first application, which is a project located at 1603 Oramus Road. If the applicant would like to come up to the table.
You have a set, right?
And this to you when you're ready.
The other way. Clay Arell, architect for the project. This is Denise Rocha from my office.
Okay. As you stated, this project is located at 1603 Oramus. It's the project involves a redesign of the entryway and a new entry porch and several new windows, which I'll show you while they're on a different page. And the project is actually before you today is for a request for modification to allow the 2 new window openings and the new little entry porch, about 47 square feet, to encroach into the required 30-foot front yard setback.
Actually, this whole area here is going to encroach, right?
Well, that already encroaches. I mean,
The whole house encroaches.
Yeah, it already encroaches.
This is actually the front yard setback.
Correct, but the front door right now is right here,
That's
right?
correct.
Right. So this whole little,
Okay. Oh, I thought you were just pointing to these 2 little areas.
no, this whole area
You're
will,
correct.
but it will all.
Okay.
Yes, but it's a very small, like I said, about 47 square feet of new entry porch that will encroach, and the 2 new windows. So that the project is located in the hillside design area. It's at about 20% slope, so it was reviewed by the Single Family Design Board. The board, like the project, supported the modification. They had a couple of design issues that they want addressed at their next hearing, but they did support the modification. Staff supports the modification. We believe that it's will be enhance the entryway into the house, will provide an aesthetic improvement to both the house and the neighborhood. And as I said, as you can see, the house already encroaches into the required setback. The house was built in the 1950s, and the setbacks changed sometime probably in the 70s. So we feel this is a very minor encroachment, and that their improvements are attractive, and that they will actually be an aesthetic improvement to the house. And so we support it, and we think that it's an appropriate improvement to the lot.
And you're recommending one condition, correct?
Yes, removal of the trellis.
Right. Do you want me to say anything about the...
Yeah, just in a minute.
Sure.
Let me see if I have any questions. I didn't announce, are the protocol of the meetings usually I introduce it and then staff does comments and then I do comments and then, but I don't think I have any questions for you right now. So yes, if you'd like to.
Okay.
I know you've
Awesome.
already stated your name and association with the project, and if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, I just briefly want to just explain the project parameters. This is primarily an interior remodel, and in so doing, we've relocated exterior windows, and that are really affected by our setback, which runs pretty much through this part of the house. So we're redoing the master bathroom, and pretty much the whole upper level of this is being remodeled, so we're requesting new window locations. In studying the house, there's a very small distance between the existing front door and this entry wall, and what we wanted to do is create a more formal entrance. If you can see from this photograph, the street Oramus, which runs up here, there's about an 8-foot grade change from the front door to the street, and then there's this large, might help if it were on the
Site plan.
site plan. There's an existing parking space here, which we all know that parking's not allowed in the front yard, but there's this large, massive concrete thing you can see, which we are removing.
Yeah, I thought
as
it was
part
a
of our-
patio.
Well, they use it for parking actually every once in a while, but we are removing it because we want to create a more formal entry point up to the front door, and then we want to push this out to give a little room to the interior. There is a closet currently in this location in the floor plan, so we're not adding a new closet here. This is the existing exterior wall. We're just removing the location of the entry to the closet off of this hallway into this entry porch. But that is the extent of it. We have some other window issues here, but
And what's this area here going to be used for?
it's just to balance the elevation, really, the architectural projection. They're probably going to put a little table there or something, but it's not a storage closet or anything. This is the entry closet.
And that was one of the questions I had in your letter. You had stated the current entry walks into a substandard hallway that does not meet building code standards. So I was wondering how it doesn't meet currently the code standards.
Well, I don't know if that's entirely correct. The issue really is that this distance is only about 3 feet, and when the door opens, there's very little walking space in here. So it meets code. By code, you need to have a minimum of 3 feet. Mm-hmm. So we all know that. But it's a little substandard in terms of the entry, having a nice entry into the house. And we felt the owners really wanted to push this out because they feel that it announces the entry a little bit more, and it doesn't impact anybody's views. There's no sidewalk. The street's 8 feet higher. So we felt it was an appropriate approach.
Okay, then it also talks about being consistent
Yeah, there's several
in the
homes.
neighborhood. I went out and was looking, and it seems
Yeah.
like at least immediately a lot of the entryways are recessed versus...
I think what we're more or less talking about is the proximity of the project residences to the street. This property here and the adjacent property are all very close to Oramus. There is no sidewalk along this street. So we felt that this was a modest approach given the delta between the street level and the entry level and the proximity of these other homes to the street. There are other examples. That's one. The neighbor here is, I think you just had that one up. That's this garage here.
Right.
And then there's a lot of homes that have their house right up real close to the street, within 10 to 12 feet.
Now,
This
that's
one's
on the
actually
other
back.
side of the street,
That's on
right?
the other side of the street, that's correct. This is the immediate adjacent neighbor up the hill. I think the real thing for us is that this house has dropped down considerably off the street compared to most of the other residences along the street.
No, the roof hang goes another 3 feet into the setback past the house.
I think we're only doing 18 inches, if I remember, but we could look at that on the plan.
This is a roof overhang, right?
Yeah, that looks like it's drawn at 2 feet. I think this is consistently 2 feet around the house. I think we were keeping that same eave detail.
So from the pop out from the wall, it's the 3 feet.
From the wall, correct.
Okay, I think that's my comments for right now. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1603? I said it wrong first, and I said Oramus.
Oramus.
Oh, it is Oramus. I was saying Oramus then.
I go back and forth. I think it's Oramus. I'm pretty sure it's Oramus. Depends on the time of day. I'll call it Oramus or Oramus.
Right, yeah. Did we receive any letters?
I had a letter from Paula Westfair.
Okay. He's just expressing general concern about development. Did you see it?
I get those every item on ABR, so I'm very familiar with Paula.
Okay. Seeing no one?
I understand her
Yeah.
comments.
I close the public hearing. As staff said in the staff report, front yard mods, I believe, are scrutinized more than an interior yard mod because you're moving out into the public space, and the effects of the project, affects more than the project site itself. Whereas if you're asking for an open yard mod, you're really just impacting your site in less usable area, and you do the trade-offs on that. When you're bumping out towards the street, I have a harder time supporting them, and just really look to see if it is appropriate. And that's why I was questioning your comment regarding the code requirement, if it really was code related, to try to make that leap on making the findings that it's consistent with our zoning ordinance, or it's necessary to secure an appropriate improvement, or consistent with the neighborhood. So I walked around trying to see other examples in the neighborhood, and on the north side of the street, the houses are developed different than the south side, given the view, and the houses are pushed and all that kind of stuff. So there is kind of a hodgepodge of different street frontages. The look of it is not really uniform street frontage. The other concern I have is, and I like that you're removing the paving here and opening it up and making it more airy, but the wall, so there's the required setback's 30 feet. The actual setback, I think, was 16 or 15, but the visual setback's really 12 from the inside of this bench wall. And so, is that an appropriate front setback?
Keep in mind, too, that the property line's here and the street's out here, so the public doesn't experience that.
Yeah, I was just
portion.
thinking more of just like a visual setback versus the actual on-the-ground reality setback, meeting the code in that. And I guess the part that I get the most hung up on is the little push-outs here, but without the little bulb-outs, that creates your entry.
Right.
And so,
And I think, do we have that perspective? Or is
this
it in
one, the
here?
color, this one here,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, exactly.
and it adds to it. So I think, given all that, the site-specific characteristics of your property, I tend to lean towards the supportability side of it. That's okay. I don't need to water it off you, sorry. It is, in general, consistent with the existing front face of the wall here. The usable areas. This is walled off, so you can't even hear. This isn't, but that teeny little area is that significant? Maybe not.
Yeah, it's just balancing off, because we're wrapping this with stone to create that entry
Yeah.
point. So this is just balancing that, essentially.
Yeah, and the roof overhang We recently amended the code to allow a 3-foot by 3-foot, either covered or uncovered, entry porch to encroach up to 3 feet in the front setback. And although you're already encroaching into the front setback, that wouldn't apply here, but the 3-foot overhang to provide like a little refuge if it's raining to unlock your door, that seems to make sense. So I can make the findings, given all that. I can make the findings listed in the staff report and approve your project, subject to that condition that that trellis in the interior
Right, yeah, we
setback
understand
be removed. Do you want to add something?
I had one other comment. I met with Don Ireland, real property agent, and because we had a concern about the planter that's actually in the public right-of-way. And so he put a notation on our system to let you know that he's not going to require an encroachment permit, but that at any time, if sidewalks are added there, these planters may be required to be removed because they are in the public right-of-way.
Yeah, the wall goes out
Right.
too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, we're not proposing any work there, but
I understand that, but I just wanted to let you know that as part of this project, we looked at that, and so
That's fine.
just,
that's a totally acceptable. The sidewalk comes up the street here and then it just
right.
dies.
Yeah, I understand
So-
that. And
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody adds one later.
Okay, so you have an approved project. This action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days.
Okay.
And the Planning Commission also has oversight authority on all actions taken here. And so within that same 10-day calendar period, they may decide this warrants review by them and call it up. And if that were to occur, Ms. Teeter would contact you.
Okay, great.
All right?
Thank you very much.
You can have this, too. There you go. The next project is 1727 Prospect Avenue. Is the applicant here? Okay, then I will skip them and come back to them. I'm assuming, are you 201 West Montecito? Okay, you can come up to the table. Did you hear, this is 201 West Montecito. Yeah.
Morning.
Morning. Whenever you're ready. I went out to the site yesterday and it did not look like this.
Old pictures. All right, the project site, which is located down in the coastal zone, is about 16,500 square feet, currently developed with a 12,700 square foot warehouse building. The proposed project involves a tenant improvement, but the modifications that we're looking at today are related exclusively to some exterior changes proposed. I want to point out that the property is dual zoned with the front half facing Montecito Street, and I did want to point that out. The building has frontage on both Montecito Street and Los Aguajis. C2 for the first half of the building, and the rear half is R4. So the warehousing use is non-conforming for both zones. The proposed tenant is a warehouse use, and again, tenant improvements include some exterior changes on the building. Because this portion of the building is zoned residential and its use is non-residential, double setbacks are required. Instead of the 10 feet for the R4, it's a 20-foot setback here off the front, and over here instead of the 6, it's a 12. This one does not apply to the building. Some minor changes, but they are predominantly just window and doors, identified here, and here, and here, and here, and here, require modification approval. Staff's position that the alterations being proposed are for the new tenant. They do not intensify the use. They do not change anything except some minor characteristics of the building, and that the modification should be approved as submitted. That is with the condition of a roll-up door here is not being proposed at this time, so that should be removed off any plan submitted in conjunction with this modification approval. We have had some neighborhood interest in the number of parking spaces being reduced on site, but staff would like to point out the parking is over what is required by the current zoning ordinance, which is 1 space for every 5,000 square feet. That is the parking requirement for a warehouse use, and the property is overparked. Today's zoning requirements would only require 3 spaces for the site. You are in receipt of a couple of other letters. I believe,
This is the one I have.
and who is that one from?
Van Horn.
Okay, and Mr. Van Horn.
He had concerns with parking and then the gate.
And the gate, I don't believe, is really a part of this. I was not able to locate the information. He had talked to me about something about a gate here that prohibited large vehicles from using the Los Aguayis into the residential neighborhood. Only small vehicles could get through here. I was not able to locate that in a minor record search that I attempted yesterday, but it can be resolved or looked into at a later point in time. But it did not relate specifically to the property that is before you this morning.
So I went out to the site yesterday, and it's evident the major remodel is already underway.
It's a voluntary seismic upgrade permit.
Oh, that's what it is.
They do have permits, yeah, for the interior. I am also aware that there have been some exterior changes, and I brought it to the building inspector's attention that really should not have been happening prior to the modifications being approved.
That's why I was wondering, this is a field change as, because the building, you can see through it. It's, okay. All right. So what was the other letter?
That's the letter I'm referring to, and I'm sorry, we did
Oh.
receive one from Paula Westbury. Also, I haven't had a chance to review that. It was just delivered.
All right. Would you like to state your name and association with the project and add comments?
Good morning. My name is Mark Kirkhart, Principal of Design Arc Architects. We're the architects of record for the project. Shannon.
I'm Shannon Brooker, also with Design Arc.
So I think Roxanne gave a pretty good explanation, but just to follow up, there's a current permit for voluntary seismic upgrade for the building. That's the work that's going on right now. So it involves new shear panels on the exterior, some steel moment frames and so forth. So that's what's been going on. We've already gone through ABR several times. So the changes to the openings that we're proposing have been fully reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review and supported both on concept, preliminary, and final. As far as the parking goes, the current parking that's existing there is not striped according to current requirements, and also there's no planters and so forth. So part of what we're doing with the reduction from the number that you see on the staff report to the number of spaces we have now is primarily to make them conform with the requirements for the parking spaces, as well as to allow us to install a chiller as a part of the air handling system for the building. Rather than putting it up on the roof, which is because it's a very old bowstring truss building that really doesn't have the structural capacity to support rooftop equipment. We also think it would be potentially not a very handsome thing to have rooftop equipment. So that's really the primary reason for the reduction in parking, is to get them to become conforming, as well as to allow us to install the chiller on the ground. And as Roxanne pointed out, the use of this building is going to be maintained as a warehouse use, as it has historically been. It's going to be warehousing collector cars. And it's only required to have 3 parking spaces, and we've got the 9 parking spaces on the outside.
So this door is being removed, but you'll still have the access
Still
up on
have access here. We brought a revised set of drawings, because on this set here where we showed this opening, we just crossed it out. We brought a set of drawings to depict the actual So as Roxanne pointed out, really what we're talking about are the changes to openings that would be within this length, because that's where we are in a setback. So we're also doing some additional changes to the front storefront here and so forth, but that's not subject to any modifications because it's not within any setback. So virtually we're not changing the wall line, we're just changing openings in the facade. So,
Here's the zone line
right.
where the setback occurs. We're proposing to remove this door and these two openings and to add these new windows.
So these are existing steel sash windows, so the new windows that we're putting in are going to be in the same spirit, the same design spirit of the existing windows that are remaining in the building. And this is where we had, once again, it's right here, so from this point forward, so these are existing openings. We are slightly changing and filling some in, but these are new, filling in an opening, new openings. From that point back is where the this is the Los Aguajes. We're not doing
Right, we're not asking for the mod for.
Okay. I understand it. All right, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the staff hearing officer on 201 West Montecito Street? No? Okay, like we had said, we received two letters. One from Mr. Van Horn, and I'm not sure, he says he's in favor of the improvements to the property, but he's just expressed concerns regarding the loss of the parking and then the gate. And since it doesn't involve a change of use, I don't know that this is really within my purview, but I would like it to be looked into as part of the plan check, just to see if it is, since there is changes in that area, specifically with the gate and the access to Los Aguajes. Because I drove down there yesterday, and there's a lot of activity, and for big trucks, I think that would be a concern. And then another letter from Ms. Paula Westbury, just expressing concerns in general on development. And I'll close the public hearing. I think the proposed changes are definitely an appropriate improvement to the building. It's a nice upgrade. It won't cause any off-site impacts. You front along a public street. There's no impacts on the other side. I believe I can make the findings, or I can make the findings, that it is an appropriate upgrade for this site, and that's consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance. Now, Roxanne, did you want me to condition that be removed, or just noted that it's going to? And they removed it from the project description, so I don't think I need to make it as a condition. It's just
Fair.
Okay. All right. So you have a project. This is appealable within 10 calendar days, and as I said with the previous project, the Planning Commission does have oversight authority, and they review my actions, and they may decide to call it up. And if that was to occur, Ms. Milazzo would contact you.
hopefully they have better things to do.
And
Thank you
we'll
very
take
much.
a copy showing the revision to that elevation.
Okay, sure.
There's perfect. This be our official set.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I still don't see the applicant for 1727.
Are you here on behalf of that item?
No, I'm sorry.
Student.
Okay. I would request, because we've had a recent change in agent,
Oh, you're right.
and the property owner does not live in Santa Barbara, that we go ahead and hear the item, and if you don't have any questions, that we could actually take action on it.
Well, I do have questions, and I don't know if you can answer them.
We can try.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, so we will move on to 1727 Prospect Avenue, and note that the owner is not present. We did receive an email from from Eric Swenson, who is listed as the applicant, informing us that he is no longer associated with the project. So we will remove him from any resolution that will be prepared.
Okay. The project site is about 11,000 square feet, located on the Riviera, zoned R2 with current development on site. Here's the street, an old substandard garage, indicated here in the green line, and a single-family residence. Recently, there was a second unit here. It has been demolished. There are plans in progress to rebuild that. However, today we are looking at demolition and replacement of the substandard garage with a two-car garage in generally the same location. The previous garage was built probably within a foot of the front lot line and right along the interior lot line. The new regulation size two-car garage will sit back 2 feet. This is will allow better drainage like a grade here that'll allow proper drainage off the street so that the garage does not get flooded as the previous one did, and will now observe the required 3-foot setback for parking structures. The garage is a little wider than normal. It's going to be 22 feet. This was per recommendation of transportation planning staff in order to allow the maneuver onto this narrow street. We put a little bit more width. The yellow area indicated here and here indicate the portions that need a modification in order to be rebuilt back, which is new construction within the 20-foot front yard setback. I did receive concerns or possible questions regarding an underground storage area. The garage, which sits at the grade of the street, does have an understory. I think it's 8 or 9 feet high. The new garage will also observe that. That eliminates the need for excessive grading, backfilling. So it is going to have an understory with a door. The applicant is proposing to use that understory for storage. Storage within a front yard also needs a modification. It was brought to my attention that the area under this garage would also be storage in an interior yard. Instead of renoticing this application and putting it on a future agenda, I think it would be better to require as any approval that the portion within the setback for that understory just be eliminated, like with a wall. The applicant's intent was just to have a small area to store lawn equipment or gardening equipment, bicycles. I don't think there would be a problem with walling off the portion within the 6-foot setback, still maintaining the amount of storage being requested. So it's not going to be the entire area below the garage, just a small area to be used for those purposes. Staff actually supports this accessory in the front yard because it's appropriate to have storage on the site. In the garage area makes sense, and because of the grade change, this won't even be visible from the public right-of-way. So staff is asking for approval of the project as submitted with the condition that the storage be eliminated from the interior yard setback.
Now, did you discuss that with the applicant?
I have not.
Okay, so they may or may not be.
I don't think that it's going to be a deal killer for them.
Okay.
You know, they just said it's wasted space. Yeah, it makes sense to use it. That way it also eliminates storage from happening inside the garage, maintaining that area exclusively for parking. It made sense. It's just use of an understory. I don't think walling off a portion of it is going to affect their desire to have some storage on site.
Now, they're pulling it away from the interior property line, and they're removing these. Forgot about the camera. They're removing existing steps that are in this area, relocating them
Correct.
over to more central to the site. When I was out on the site visit, this is the typical layout. I didn't get any aerials with the submittals, but it is a typical development to have the garage pushed up close to the street. I think since due to the grade on both sides, on the north side it slopes up, and on the south side it slopes down. However, in 3 or 4 of the instances, cars were parked in front of the garage blocking the sidewalk. So my question was, could the garage be pushed back? It's raised foundation. They're enlarging it anyways. What's the possibility of it being moved back? So if a car were to be parked in the driveway, it wouldn't block the sidewalk.
It would have to be pushed 20 feet back, which would set it up against the front of the house.
Well,
Transportation
could
does
ask-
request a 20-foot depth on any new driveway. This was the historic location. The only reason it's being moved back at all is, again, to allow for that drainage grate so that the garage doesn't flood. If you saw vehicles parked over the sidewalk? I mean, on my site visits, there were no vehicles parked in the garage. It's my understanding that
Oh,
the
no.
structure is substandard
Yeah.
and not being used.
Yeah, well, no, there was a car in here, but it wasn't on this subject site. It was just as I was walking up and down the street. So it was other property, other properties. It wasn't on this site.
I'm sure that happens up there, parking constrained neighborhood. However, a new, healthy garage will probably encourage that the vehicles get parked inside.
Just visitors and stuff, because on-street parking was very limited. Okay. I think that was my main question. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1727 Prospect Avenue? Did we receive any letters?
I did receive a letter from Paul Westbury expressing concerns with the project.
Okay. And no other ones?
No.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Like I said, I read the staff report and visited the site, and this is a typical development in that area with the garage pushed up close to the street and the house elsewhere. I don't have a problem with it, it's just the concern I had with blocking the sidewalk and pedestrian access. In regards to the storage area, underneath the proposed garage within the front setback, as you noted in your staff report, I think that is appropriate in that it's not visible from the street, and it's it's an appropriate amenity for for residential development. And therefore, I could make the findings in the staff report. However, I would like to make a change to the finding, just delete some of the wording. The last sentence, Gloria, where it starts the storage room. It says currently it says the storage room located beneath the garage provides a valuable use to an otherwise wasted understory that will provide a convenient location for the property's storage needs and will not be visible from the street. I think those are, it is a valuable use on the property. However, I don't believe having it in the front setback is valuable, so I would like to strike out starting with provides and then ending with and. So the sentence would say, the storage room located beneath the garage will not be visible from the street. Because I think that's how I can support it being located in the front setback. And there's no proposed conditions, correct?
Correct.
So with that, the project is approved, and there is a 10-day calendar appeal period, and the Planning Commission has oversight authority on all the actions, and they can decide to call this project up. And if they do, you'll contact the owner.
Great.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.
And I adjourn the meeting.